To show, and I'm so grateful he's here. So if you want to introduce yourself first, explain your role in the game.
Okay, so I'm Quinn. Had the pleasure of writing the musical score to CarnEvil under the wonderful tutelage of Jack. And if you can imagine going back and forth saying, Jack, is this twisted enough for you? And him saying, no, I need more. And then I go back, and then I came back, and I'm not sure we ever finished, but the game was launched. So, but yeah. So, and at that time, I had worked in a number of games at Midway, WMS, did a game called You Don't Know Jack. So yeah, was heavy into composing at the time.
So my name's Jack Hager. I was the art director at Midway for many, many years, and CarnEvil was a concept that I had been kicking around since working at Midway in the early 1980s. I had started with Midway back in 1981 and did a game called Sinistar, and then left to do a computer company called Amiga in Silicon Valley. Came back and then worked on Narc. But even while working on Narc, I really wanted to do a haunted house horror show kind of theme, and that's really where CarnEvil came from. So I was just blessed to have so many great people on the team, but most of all, the whole reason for Kevin and I being here is Scott Pikulski. So I'd like to welcome you and introduce you all to Scott Pikulski, who founded this event and the reason that we're here. So,
well, Jeremy, he was super into CarnEvil, and I'm like, wow, somebody else is into CarnEvil besides me. I came down with my box of stuff and showed him all the artifacts, and he was like, we need to do something like a CarnEvil Day or something, and I'm like, yeah, man, that'd be cool. So today is the day, but yeah, I joined Midway, and I was a cartoonist, character guy, and I didn't know much about 3D, so I was kind of lucky to be there, and I ended up in the coolest job ever. Like, I couldn't even believe it. Like, just making crazy characters all day. I mean, I thought I was gonna be on a sports team or something, you know. And I ended up like on the coolest game. To this day, it was the coolest game I've ever worked on.
By far the most creative.
Oh yeah, just went crazy. It was great. Straight up.
Yeah, it was on a whole nother level, and unfortunately not all of the team members could join us today, but and you help me if I trip up. So our lead programmer was Sam Zaire, and we couldn't have done this without Sam. I think one of the features that makes CarnEvil so great at the time was we were able to exploit the Z buffer in the game, which allowed us to create these wonderful characters, but put them in a pre-rendered movie. So you could have a zombie duck, jump out from behind a table that's part of the movie, and it was incredible. At that time, it was like nobody else had done it. Martin Murphy couldn't make it, but he is regarded as one of the best professors in interactive entertainment at Ringling University in Florida. Martin Murphy was another 3D cinematic guy. And one of the things I think that stands out about CarnEvil that people are drawn to is the intro scene, where you see this kid on a hayride, and he falls off the hayride, and he finds this tomb, and he puts a token in. I don't know if you have yours within reach, but he grabs a token much like this.
Was it shiny and new?
It was shiny and new. Well, that's a whole other thing. I have a bone to pick. So it was shiny and new, but it had a specific value to it, which we'll go under. But anyway, so that the kid in the video takes a token, puts it in the headstone. So Martin knew that we wanted to do something really amazing for the cinematic opening. And he said, well, I know some people in the movie industry that are working in 3D Studio Max, and it was a studio called Blur in Santa Monica, California. That studio was run by a guy named Tim Miller, and he did the intro movie and the outro movie. And Tim was awesome to work with, and he totally got it. And later on, Blur would use the CarnEvil movie that he made for us in their sizzle reel or whatever all the time. So Tim Miller went on to direct a film you may have heard of called Deadpool. Tim Miller is also directing the current sequel to Terminator coming out this fall, Terminator Dark Fate. So we had a guy named Tim Miller do our intro movie, not too shabby. So he's another person I wish could be here.
Yeah, me too.
Jason Blahoviak was another programmer on the team. In the group shot, Ryan Atala was another 3D person that was crucial to the team.
Like
Environments. So there were some people that didn't finish the project, but again, equally important, Pete Sefchik, who I think went on to work in England doing raves and things like that. He became like a music DJ guy, and he loved snowboarding. Sam Kreider was an exceptional, and is an exceptional 3D guy. Currently works on a project you may have heard of, Mortal Kombat. So Sam is still with NetherRealm doing that. Jake Simpson was a programmer on the game in the early inception, and I'm very grateful to everything that Jake did on the project as well. Oh my God. Thank you. Martin Martinez was another artist on the team who unfortunately is no longer with us. Martin passed, but we are so grateful for everything Martin did, and his work is right up front. So when you see the cemetery transform from the cemetery into CarnEvil, all the banners in the park and the Freakshow and everything were all Martin Martinez, and he was just the greatest, most wonderful. Loved Marty, and Marty worked on Revolution X with Aerosmith with me, worked on NHL Open Ice, just a wonderful, wonderful guy and a terrific human being. Oh, a fun detail in the photo, that you see with the group shot, the character Smeek, that's actually a real actor that we hired. He was known in Chicago as Puppet, and I'll use his name. His name was Puppet the Dwarf, and he worked with Mancow on the Mancow radio program, and he was a radio celebrity. So Smeek is actually a very famous guy in Chicago named Puppet the Dwarf. Another person on the team that did stop motion animation, literally did the metal ball and socket armatures, old school like that, Ray Harryhausen style, was Tom Brierton. So Tom was with the team for a while, did amazing things. I think the wonderful thing about Midway and CarnEvil especially is how many talented people that we brought in to support the team. I guess I'll start here. The basic story of CarnEvil, I'm going to go through this book pretty quick. So basically, it's a fictitious story, but it took place in a town in Iowa called Greeley Valley. And the reason CarnEvil is there, it's actually folklore, and it's actually not a good story, because why did this carnival rise up from a cemetery? How did it end up in a cemetery to begin with? Well, that's not such a good thing. So in 1898, CarnEvil came through Greeley Valley, and the leader of CarnEvil, the mastermind, was Ludwig von Tokentacher. We'll talk about his name a little later. But he fell in love with a local young girl, and he decided to take her back on his Zeppelin with him. The daughter's father, who was a farmer, forbade this, and he said, "You're not leaving with my daughter." So in the middle of the night, the daughter goes back to the carnival, leaves in the Zeppelin with Tokentacher, but the farmer and all these other farmers show up with pitchforks and rocks and guns and whatever. They attack the Zeppelin. It crashes in a horrible, fiery, horrific crash. The whole carnival goes up in flames. And that is why CarnEvil is buried in a cemetery. Everybody in the carnival perished. But the locals don't want to talk about that too much. Nobody ever wanted to say anything after that they basically just murdered all these carnival people in the middle of their cornfield. So that's why CarnEvil lives in the cemetery that the story starts at. So there were different ideas we had about the wolf at the door, and that's a term that we use in video game design a lot. So you step up to a game and it's like, why am I motivated to do this? What's my mission? And there were specific stories that I really wanted to sell that idea of maybe a kid is in school with his young brother. They're not supposed to go to the cornfield, but they do, and the mother says, don't go near that place on Halloween. Everybody wants to go to that cemetery. The kid goes with his brother. The brother gets lost. CarnEvil comes back, and you're trying to rescue your brother. That was one of the stories. Another one is a young guy in high school is riding his motorcycle, and he's riding his motorcycle, and he's got his girl on the back, and they see this Zeppelin come out of the clouds, and it's like, holy, and above cornfields. And an invitation flutters down right in their hand and says, admit to CarnEvil. And he's, how cool is this? Yeah, let's do this. And he goes with his girlfriend, so they go in, and again, everything locks down. Token Talker shows up. He said, thanks for bringing your girlfriend. I'll take her from here. Now you're the boyfriend. You're trapped in the park, and you're trying to win your girlfriend back. So that was another scenario we had. And all along, I think the whole thing about the carnival already being dead was also an angle that we had where it's like, you're not really attacking real people. Everybody here is a zombie. Everybody here is a phantasm. Everybody here is a ghost. So that was one of the concepts we had too. So we were very much aware of that, and I'll kind of come back to that. In the end, we just decided to make it a story about every man, and that's why the boy jumps off the back of this scarecrow ride through the cemetery, to make it sort of like about every man, that it wasn't really about a specific character, that anybody could kind of project themselves into this role. So here's a copy of the brochure. There's some initial sketches, things that inspired me to want to do a game that was horror show based. So this was back in 1989. I was thinking about doing a game that had to do with a carnival or a horror show, and you can kind of see two teenagers with their skateboards kind of daring each other. Are you going to go in? Are you going to go in? And that's where this sketch came from. You may see it down the line. This is the famous token, which we referred to before. So, and that's why CarnEvil is 1898, because again, they visited Greeley Valley, and that's pretty darn close. Thanks to Mr. Fox here and his amazing team that made a replica of this that you can only get at Prince Arcades here in Bolingbrook. Just amazing. And this is the actual size too. I saw the original coin. This is the actual size. It is. So
we were guessing sort of.
These are a couple sketches of the park.
Detail, man.
Yeah, so it's very detailed. But we were thinking at one point of making a carousel be the decision point, where you'd go to the carousel and then you'd get off for different...
I think we even made that.
We did, for different locations of the park.
I remember that.
And again, if you want to go back to this stuff in detail, we can. These are some initial inspirational sketches of the dirigible, the Zeppelin, Token Talker's Zeppelin. And I just like the idea of seeing the Zeppelin sort of emerge from behind the clouds, and here's the young high school guy on his motorcycle with his girlfriend, seeing it appear over Greeley. This is probably the first time anybody is seeing the actual player of CarnEvil. This is the boy that jumps off the back of Spooky Sam's hayride, and this is how he's meant to look if you saw him in daylight. So he's sort of everyman teenager. I pictured him with red hair, a Spooky Sam t-shirt, and he's got a hooded sweatshirt on, and this is the model that Blur Studios used to make their opening and closing video in the game. Back in the old days, we would search for fonts, but again, this was 1996, 97, so I was coming up with logos and fonts by hand for the gate for Greeley Valley Cemetery. So that's what I was playing with here. There actually is a real Greeley Valley, or not Greeley Valley, but an actual Greeley, Iowa. And in Greeley, Iowa, a friend of mine stopped there, and I think the sign says Greeley. There is a cemetery. So I brought these photos. So that's kind of fun for the folks in Greeley to know that we kind of use them as a starting point. These two drawings reflect, I might rotate this for you, might be easier. The opening, the inspiration for the opening gate for CarnEvil as a cemetery, and when the lightning hits after you enter the coin, it transforms into the carnival. So these are like very early inspirational sketches. Somebody said Rudy from Funhouse. It's similar, but it's not Rudy. It's kind of a cross between the Coney Island guy, and I was a big fan of a Sondheim musical called Sweeney Todd, and they had sort of a period screaming guy. So I made my own character that's sort of similar to decorate the gates. So just we were always sketching, always coming up with things. Even details like the booths, it was very important to
the shooting gallery?
Different variations on the shooting gallery, on the booths outside the cemetery when you transform it. That's pretty much a shooting gallery type model. Here I am looking at Carnival Wagons, gypsy wagons, if you will.
Wow, look at that.
These are actual CarnEvil logos. Part of the story that's pretty unique that nobody knows about. My original concept, instead of Umlaut, who is the skull that floats around CarnEvil, I was really thinking about the narrator that takes you through would be a puppet, would be a Punch and Judy puppet, because they're twisted and they're sick, and it would be a fun narrator. And there are TV shows and things that I liked growing up. The Avengers out of the BBC was a big one. And I also was involved in puppet theater. Go figure. So
then you go out and see.
Yeah. So this actually leads to a story about a local magician in Chicago that I'll tell you about. So here's Punch, and here's more. So just working on variations, then working on kind of the spike font. Unfortunately, I don't have all of my drawings, but you can see how I'm sort of like elaborating on. Yeah, I did, definitely. So this is still with the Punch character.
Awesome. Oh, look at that, it's great.
And then this was another one. So you can see we were really kind of considering this, taking it farther.
Yeah, you had Punch around for a while.
Yeah. And there's more sketches. And then here's where Umlaut shows up. And Umlaut is the skeleton head, jester head. He's the sidekick of Token Talker. And there's reasons for that. So we'll go into the reasons for it. I was also considering a ventriloquist dummy to be the narrator. And ventriloquist dummies aren't creepy at all, so especially when they have a whip. So I was working on ideas like this. There's a cartoon artist that I totally respect, and I totally give him all the credit, Kim Deitch, who I was inspired to do something like this, and that's why I didn't do it. But you can see I really was thinking, oh, that would be so cool to make it a ventriloquist dummy. So I was working on animations, different expressions, and even voices. And Kevin, we'll talk with Kevin about voices and things too as we go along here, because Scott and I did voices for the game, and we would do them, and we may do some today. We'll see. But they would end up being heavily modified by Kevin. So here's one of the reasons why I was thinking of the puppet. This is a gentleman named Jay Marshall, who had a studio in Chicago on Lincoln Avenue called Magic Incorporated. This is awesome and creepy as shit stuff. Jay Marshall is like one of the gods of magic. So Penn and Teller, you heard of them. This is the guy they would go to say, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? Magic Incorporated was like a creepy, awesome place on its own on North Lincoln Avenue. I took the whole team at that time to see Jay, and Jay did a command performance for us in his studio of Punch and Judy. Jay hadn't done Punch and Judy in about 20 years, and I have it on DVD, and it's pretty special. And Jay was probably one of the dirtiest comedians you'd ever, or magicians you'd meet. And he would be on the Bozo show, and he did a character called Jay and Lefty.
Oh, we got some.
Yeah! These are sketches of Umlaut. So instead of doing the puppet, these are the actual sketches of Umlaut, and just thinking about him being a dismembered jester head that would exist on the top of a tombstone, and that's why he shows up in the cinematic for the opening of the game. Yeah.
No offense to the end product, but that has so much character to it.
There was, and that's how we were talking about the working in 3D changes things a little bit. So everything has different flavors, but the essence is there for everything.
Right.
So
I just love your drawing.
here's a color version, and then for those that don't know, it was kind of an inside joke. It was just kind of fun. So Umlaut is a symbol in the alphabet in German and Norway and so on and so forth. And Motorhead, I think, was using Umlaut. So Umlauts, Motley Crue, Umlauts were big in the rock world and everything. So I thought, why don't we call this guy Umlaut? Here's some more. There's how Umlaut ended up in the game. Again with Kevin and myself, you may get a touch of Umlaut tonight. So the actual voice of, I'm actually the voice of Umlaut. So when he talks to you in the game, that's actually me. So we may or may not reenact some of that tonight. And then this was sort of an inspirational group sketch, even before we had defined all the characters. But, and then here is one of my original sketches of Ludwig von Tokentaker. And in our early work on the game, we called him, it was very unoriginal, but Mr. Mephisto or Mr. Natas, Esquire, Natas, which wink wink, don't play it backwards, kids. But that was Mr. Natas. And how we ended up on Tokentaker was there always was a little bit of a German Scandinavian background to the game, and there were reasons for it, but when we had a test on the game, or even before we tested, we were playing it and we said, man, this level is awesome, it's really killing. And I said, man, it really takes tokens. And then Scott said, it's a real token taker. And I'm like,
We should rehearse that one.
All right, take two. The game's a real token taker, and that's how it came up with Tokentaker, and just made 2 Ks and come on, you know.
He was also a doctor, I think.
He was 2 doctors. He had 2 doctorate degrees, and in Germany, especially in Old German at that time, you would always display all of your credentials in your name to be more impressive. So he was Professor Dr. Ludwig von Tokentaker, or Tokentaker if you want to be accurate about it. When I was doing the intro story, there's like 20 versions of that there in the book, and then there's a line in there where I wanted the story to feel like it was from 1890, and it was kind of a Vincent Price kind of line thing. So, you know, when the moon is full, And I get to this line, when trees are bare, walk through the cemetery if you dare, where skeletons rot and corpses fester. Locate the tomb with the skull of a jester. Feed him the token, worth a quarter times 2. It is then that CarnEvil will return for you. And Scott busted my chops on that one. Scott goes, Jack, what's a quarter times 2? I'd go, that's 50 cents. And
I'm like, what if the game is priced $1?
right, so Scott felt it was too highfalutin. I was trying to make it
Two
old.
quarters come out of the coffin?
Yeah. So this is total inside baseball. He grabs a token, much like this.
Was it shiny and
It was shiny and well, that's a whole other thing. I have a bone to pick. So anyway, we compromised on feed him a token all shiny and new, but that's your inside baseball nugget.
I think you may not have heard your voice originally in that role, because I can tell we pitched it down a little bit, and I think we got to the end and convinced ourselves that you should be it.
Yeah.
I remember
I did like a test track.
That's right. Didn't we have a German
because
guy?
you've done so many voices, but I think you were resistant to do that voice.
Yeah.
But if you listen to it, it's you, but it's about a quarter, octave down.
Yeah, and Kevin, I'll tell you, we all did so much ourselves that, like, do you want to be this guy? Yeah, I'll be this guy. Do you want to do this?
I know you were doing
it ended up being a lot of the guys on the team. All right, so if you want to
See what happens here.
see what happens.
Okay.
And then umlaut, that's my voice too, so obviously that's pitched way up.
Volume back up.
Too, yeah.
Well, we did this already, so.
Yeah.
Is that too far?
Oh yeah, this is the you can still don't worry about it. We can come back to it. So you can explain this if you want to get in closer for him.
Well, this isn't one of the levels.
This is the track mode.
The track mode,
The Rob Zombie?
Yeah, that was Rob Zombie. That was kind of but there's about 16 bars of, Rob Zombie.
I remember that. I think we went on test, and it was something like when we came back, we're like, we need something super exciting.
Yeah.
Like, how about this Rob Zombie track, And it came back, hey, this is the Rob Zombie track.
And so who did the guitar on that?
This would have been Vince Ponarelli.
Vince Ponarelli.
Still writing.
Made it to our main attraction, the three-ring circus in the big top tent. We hope our clowns will entertain you before making you the main event.
And then the calliope behind.
So you can actually get a lot of mileage with Jack's voice. You pitch it down, you get one character, you pitch it up a little, it's another, but the talent is what really matters.
Let's see what comes up next.
So that's
This is, I love this.
level select, right?
Yeah.
This is one I wish that I had just written into a tune, because it's such a, this is mesmerizing. I think it's the best start of a game ever.
Yeah, so all of this is Kevin.
But the funny thing is, like, as you look at all this, I'm like you guys. I just walked into this. And so he had the story, what did we start in 1989? And all the richness, and the fact that it was theatrical. And then it wasn't just like, hey, it's a sports game, we need a rock tune. It was like, they all have an individual, a unique setting, each level, multiple settings. And the layer of creepy horror on top of it. It was, I think it was quite a challenge. I remember at the time to get it done, but it was like as rich as it sounds and plays. I think it was interesting for them to get it. From my standpoint, it's like closer.
And it's a really eclectic soundtrack too. I mean, you had to go all over the map.
Yeah, it is all over that.
But just the foundation. You could play this at any haunted house, and This is the haunted house.
I think it's the first one I wrote too, right?
And so, are you doing this all on a
Oh
keyboard?
yeah, I played all of it.
Everything.
But it's designed to sound like an orchestra.
Yeah.
But it was almost all synth. There's probably, I might have brought in a trumpet or two or a guitar player, but this was.
And then, Kevin, explain, were you looking at video as you did this? I mean, how did you gauge, like, oh, I got to do the fast stuff now?
I was having nightmares of, no, I'm only half, the artwork, because the levels weren't done.
Yeah.
So it was this stuff that was driving it. And I think it was our conversations.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give too much credit. When you're a composer, it's a gift if you have a director who not only knows what he wants, but can kind of communicate. But I think there's no question that I think this symbiotic relationship here. I had written video games, I had done jingles and stuff, but they're all kind of straight shot stuff. To kind of get to this whole other higher level of creepy, awesome writing that feels like a chase and a challenge, and you're scared, but not too scared.
Yeah.
And it's from Hollywood, you know, like it was, for me, it was rising to another level. But I remember getting there through conversation with you.
And of course, there were a lot of reference points to Tim Burton had come out with Nightmare Before Christmas.
We were using that.
So, you know, there were a lot of things we could refer to. I had a real eclectic background, but Kevin just
I would say
nailed it.
this too. I think you have to. I don't know if I got lucky, but when you're writing, especially with this, you have to get to a place. So I was in a place, and I think it was the right place. But you have to be, you know, like you can listen to these other levels, the garage level, or you know the
sleigh ride.
Yeah, all of it. You have to get to that place. I think the art certainly did it, but what also happens is you listen to it over and over and over again. So it's an interesting thing. I know one of the MK guys is saying he thinks he has, you know, PTSD from. There's something that can happen when, I don't know if it happens to you, when you're this deep into a game, but you start to, a part of you starts to live it, and if it works out, then you write creepy music.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Let's.
What is this?
Freakshow.
Freakshow.
Freakshow. I can see the flying around.
Turn it up a little.
It's all the way.
So different tempo, different vibe.
Yeah, and I remember, I think this one we wanted to hear. Look, all the characters degrade, and there's a vocal response when they get shot.
Yeah.
So this may have been, I think on this particular one, we may have wanted a little more interaction with the characters. They're relentlessly kind of coming up into your face.
Yeah. And you've got a lot of rhythm going here.
Yeah.
You know, so. As you move through.
Yeah, there's just a more.
Carnival was a rail game, right, Scott? I mean, you know that. So we determine the pace.
Yeah.
So you have to at least give them some sort of pulse to feel it.
Yeah. This is the right pace for this level.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. The torture.
The torture guys.
Oh, this is
the most interesting song of the whole thing.
Yeah, very creepy characters.
I think this one should be longer too, but I actually used Portishead as a reference for this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, where'd you come up with this song?
Yeah, but this is interesting too, because at that time SoundForge had just come out, so we could manipulate sounds. You could take a single sound, sometimes you could automate it and play it, but like that beeping thing, that was hand edited. You know, just digitally I made the sound. And I think the trick was to make it sound fluid and not like it was a digital edited sound. You know, it sounds like a kind of an acoustic weird thing. Yeah. I don't know what instrument it is, but
you could definitely feel the Portishead kind of.
Like it feels kind of acoustic.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And that's like a detuned alarm, like a warning alarm. Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah.
No, this is the baby?
Oh yes.
This is the boss monster.
So the big baby, that was a whole. No, you can play it.
I just said there was a story of it.
But Kevin just nails this. So it's evil, but it has this nursery rhyme sound to it. It's just amazing.
And very aggressive.
And we were combining Jurassic Park,
a giant
Frankenstein,
baby, smoking a cigar.
Yeah.
Vomiting into the dollhouse.
And there was.
But the other thing that, as we wrote these, like I started to use some of the same instruments over those kind of bell tone carnival-y things, just to kind of
tie it all together.
Yeah, because every level was different, and so if you listen for the high things, you'll be like, oh, that's what's there everywhere, almost everywhere.
Yeah.
Sleigh ride. Oh,
evil elves and
we sang on
Krampus.
this.
Yeah.
Did you sing too?
I might have a little bit.
I think.
There's the next track coming up. There's a historic track where Kevin,
Oh, this
you
is-
brought in all of the sound guys.
Yeah.
Midway
Well, this
of it.
this is my law then. I don't know if you did this, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we'll get that high.
Yeah, but this is cool because it was kind of a journey. You know, it's like
juxtaposition.
yeah, it's like
Just evil.
Evil Christmas. It's
But this is like in and out of the. We're almost having fun.
Right,
We
yeah.
might have fun for a moment,
Yeah.
and then it gets
Fun.
dark. Like if you go creepy, well,
Yeah, it's creepier than to just went fun. Yeah.
and even the female voices, that's all keyboard.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah. But this is very. I went retro on this one. This almost sounds 1940.
Yeah.
You know.
Rankin Bass,
Right.
Island of Lost Boys. Yeah. All right, we're gonna have to. Are we gonna sing? We gotta sing.
Come on and ride, Big Bunyan ride, no place to hide. Big Bunyan ride, come on inside. Big Bunyan ride, ride. Into the night we will swing and ride, and then you'll die, then you'll die, then you'll die, then you'll die. Come on and ride, Big Bunyan
Same
ride,
thing over there.
no place to hide. Big Bunyan ride, come on and ride. Big Bunyan ride, ride and ride. Into the night we will scream and ride, and then you'll die, then you'll die, then you'll die, then you'll die, then you'll die.
There we go.
So, again, this was another another day at the office. So Kevin got all of the sound guys to be the chorus on. This is my favorite track in the game, if you can't tell.
This
So
is-
it's called the Big Bunyan Ride.
This is the.
And you hear about that much of it, but it
So
cracks me
at
up.
this part, this is where I took a bunch of those parts and I inverted them.
Yeah.
Because the whole ride changes.
Yeah.
And so there's a bunch of parts that change. Like if you listen to what comes next, is it coming up here?
Yeah, so it becomes
High
kind of
part here
surreal.
flips.
Yeah.
So the low bass, I literally took all the arrangement here and flipped it. Yeah. And it was like so naturally creepy. I was like, I think I added the melody, but it's literally the section before flipped. Yeah, that's one of my favorites.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Very nice singing, by the way. This is Jeremy with Prince Arcades. Thank you very much for being part of the Welcome to CarnEvil night. Everybody?
Thanks for having us, Jerry.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And thanks to Scott Pikulski for making this happen.
Scott,
Scott.
welcome to
Jerry.
CarnEvil.
And for Jeremy Fox to arranging all this. We had a great time and hope to see you out at Prince Arcades.
Come down.
Thank you very much.
So I'm Jack Hager, and I'm going through this book of CarnEvil sketches and history a bit. And we got to a point in development where we thought that Ludwig von Tokentaker should have a sidekick or a narrator to the park. And we came up with this device called Umlaut, who was this disembodied head, and he would narrate the player through each part of the park he was going to visit. So these were some of my first sketches for Umlaut. Here's Umlaut with some different expressions and angles and whatever. And I would do these drawings and then hand them off to Scott Pikulski or Martin Murphy to do 3D renderings and turn him into a character we could use into the game. Here's Umlaut, how he actually appears in the game. And like I said, we all did voices, we all contributed through the whole project. So I'm actually the voice of Umlaut that Kevin Quinn, our audio guy, modified. He did a great job and kind of pitch shifted him up so he talks in a much higher voice. This was just a concept sketch of all the characters at once, kind of a group shot. And we didn't develop all of these characters, but I was already thinking at the start of the game how a group of characters in CarnEvil might look grouped together.
Can you hold it up straight?
Sure. And some of the characters are in the game, some aren't.
The front two aren't, are they?
What are we pointing at here? So Yeah, there's a female character. The ventriloquist dummy didn't end up in the game. A big strong man technically didn't, although we did have a big clown in the final big top who is a boss monster. This was one of my first sketches for Token Talker, and again he's got sort of a a German sounding name, Ludwig von Token Talker, and that all came about because when we were first testing the waves of the game, we realized, boy, this is really addictive. And Scott said, yeah, this game's a real token taker. And I said, well, that's a great name for the boss. So that's what we call him, Token Talker. And there's another image of him. Now and then I would do other characters that could be more menacing. This character didn't make it into the game, but it gives you an idea of sort of a gothic bat-winged enemy. He didn't make it into the game, but just gives you an idea that we were always thinking of characters, thinking of styles, and I thought he was kind of a neat looking guy. So Token Talker needed his henchmen. He needed guys that put up the tents and whatever. So that's what these characters represented, and they were just meant to be sort of the grunts in the game that you run into, but we actually didn't use them. So we decided to just focus on each ride. Like the haunted house has zombies, so there would be zombies around the ride. We didn't really need to actually use these guys, but I did kind of like the look with the clown makeup on and whatnot. Here's another one, and just thinking of these guys running around. In one of our original stories, if you were there with your girlfriend, your high school girlfriend, she'd be abducted by these guys to take back to Token Talker. So they did have a reason to be in the game, but we ended up not using them.
Were they called Lost Souls?
They weren't called. Did I say that there? I don't have my glasses on. Yeah. So yeah, I think the one thing we were thinking about all this is, and the way to think about the characters, the reason CarnEvil is in a cemetery is the whole carnival burned down in 1898, and they're all essentially ghosts. They're all essentially zombies. So that's why, even though you see these characters, you're shooting them, they're not real people. So that was one concept that we had right from the start. So my way of drawing and thinking about these characters was always about personality. So I'm defining their personality here. So the poses are important to me, kind of give you a sense of, okay, what is this guy about? And when it comes down to these drawings, now these are the drawings that I would then work on and think about to hand off to the 3D artists. So they would be in this static pose that it would be easier to build a model in 3D. And I'm even thinking as I draw very straight edge, straight line kind of modeling as if they were built out of polygons. So that's why the change in the look.
Yeah, you wouldn't even guess that's the same artist.
Yeah. So there's a reason for it, and then you really see it here. Same with the head. So if the 3D artist needed to include expressions, even here I would really make them very chiseled, as though they were made out of polygons, as though they were already rendered in 3D. And again, here's the same standard pose for modeling in 3D, very chiseled rendering. This kind of addresses a little bit of how we would talk amongst ourselves when you would shoot any character. We said, well, maybe should we show like a spirit kind of leaving their body, just kind of let you know that everything that you're dealing with is otherworldly.
They're expiring?
Yeah, they're expiring. And but you're not really dealing with human characters. That was a priority that we really wanted to think about as we were working on the game. So here's where I was talking about,
wow.
Maybe we should go to characters that are specific to the location of the park that you're in. So we thought, well, the haunted house, maybe we should just have zombies instead of these roustabout guys. So these are a couple of my first sketches of the zombies. I needed them to look scary, but still look like they were undead, like, you know, like they were zombies coming out of the ground. A lot of my sketches
That looks familiar.
are really, yeah, this is pretty familiar, get kind of detailed, so I would use a finer marker or a finer pen, and this is when we were talking about having an actual kitchen in the haunted house,
Yeah.
and we were thinking, well, how could we make it kind of disgusting, and there was a lot of, you know, inside jokes where there were demands that we make the game as shocking as we could, so we thought of what would zombies be doing in a kitchen. So we even put a chef's hat on them, and Scott did a great job with the refrigerator of putting drawings on the refrigerator.
Body parts hanging up there with the
Yeah,
pots
that
and
kind
pans.
of thing. So these would just be sort of inspirational drawings. Likewise, for inside the haunted house, I did drawings that address details of furniture, chandeliers, that kind of thing that you might find in a haunted house. And we would all share these as a team, and so when the actual house was built in 3D, we would have these things to refer to.
That's amazing.
Let me see where I'm at now. More details, even things that seem kind of obvious, but just, you know, defining what a thorn bush might look like, or a bear inside the house, a stuffed animal, that kind of thing. So just anything that came to mind, we'd put down. And then I started to think about the vehicle that you'd actually ride through the haunted house. And in an amusement park, they'll refer to that as a dark ride. So you get in the car and experience the ride. So
Reminds me a lot of a ride at Indiana Beach.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
At any classic haunted house, here's some more details of the outside of the haunted house, how it might actually look. And then kind of going back to a turn of the century car that might take you through the haunted house. Again, thinking about the origin of CarnEvil, at least when they ended up in the cemetery, was 1898. So I was looking at vehicles around 1898. How would the industrial design of this car look that you sit in? So that's what I was working on here. And I'm going to jump around a little bit, but these are sketches of the first boss monster of the haunted house, and this was a character we called Hambone. And again, the whole point of what we were doing at Midway and at designing these games was to sell coin boxes, that we had to make games addictive and unfortunately locked down at points to challenge the player and maybe take a little extra money at that point. And that was the purpose of these boss monsters. So Hambone had a Gatling gun for one of his arms, and again, that's kind of period at the turn of the century, Gatling gun.
Noose around his neck.
A noose around his neck, and he's got a meat cleaver. It's almost like a goalie mask, but we just figured, well, let's put a mask on his face so you never actually see his face. And just different takes on it. Here, his flesh looks like it's been burned in acid or fire. The other one, I have like a very hairy, scratchy vest on him. I thought that might look kind of intimidating.
He's about 3 or 4 tokens to kill.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
So we did make, boss monsters, the whole point was to try and take a few extra tokens.
Sure.
And that's what we did at that point. And there were ways to make it faster, but... And then I was thinking about the female boss monster, oh my god, my mind is trying to be Eva Marie, thank you.
So these are early Maries?
So these are early ideas from Marie. Some were I was inspired by books and illustrations that I liked, but thinking about Lizzie Borden was a famous character at the turn of the century who they say may have, taken her family with an axe, and this is sort of a Lizzie Borden type character. But then I thought about Evil Marie being more like royalty or
a richer.
yeah, and more imposing. So Evil Marie became the final boss monster for the haunted house. And then here I'm starting to think about clowns a little bit, different types of clowns at the turn of the century, and some of this goes all the way back to the haunted house, or to the big top at the end of the game. This would be a boss monster clown. One of the big clowns that we did in CarnEvil, his name is Ozob, so I'll let you try and figure that puzzle out, who Ozob really is. Play the record backwards. And kind of a fun fact about Midway in our office was we were right there. We were right on some hallowed ground. The Chicago River ran right behind our building, and Lane Tech High School was there. On the across the river was this very famous theme park in Chicago that Chicago is known for I think about 100 years, called Riverview. So Riverview theme park was right in our backyard, and I actually hate to say it, I did have childhood memories of Riverview theme park, of actually being there. So there's a lot of inspiration of clowns, of the theme park itself, the creepiness of it. Was really inspired by where we were geographically.
That was many other designers shared that same.
Absolutely. I think Python did a bit with Comet, and I can't recall Barry Ausler. Yeah. But it did inspire a lot of us, and I think being from Chicago too, we all. The team had a sense of humor too, so everything we did had a tongue-in-cheek humor involved.
Can't be too serious.
Yeah. So even in the big top, I wanted to have like a smaller clown, and I developed this character Smeek. I think Scott came up with the name Smeek. I have no idea what it means or how that originated, but we stuck with it. I like the name.
That doesn't mean anything spelled backwards.
No. So Smeek was a smaller character, but he definitely looked evil. So these were the first sketches for Smeek. These are some of the inspirational sketches for Ozob. So he would have been more the boss monster type clown, and here I have him in sort of jack-o'-lantern pajama type fabric on his costume. Another Ozob character. At the end of the big top, you find out that Token Talker actually wants to take your brain as the character and put you inside a giant ape. That's his master plan for whatever reason. So in order to do that, he needs a surgeon or two, and so I created with Dr. Clot was the name of the surgeon, and his nurse helper. And even there, we wanted to make sure that they had sort of a comical clown appearance, but all their tools and syringes and everything were oversized and whatever. So that's Dr. Clot. And the voice of Dr. Clot was one of the great sound guys at Midway. Rob Berry did the voice of Dr. Clot, and he did a great job. The Freakshow. So the Freakshow is another example of graphics where Marty Martinez did graphics that we applied to the 3D models, and this turned out fantastic. So the mouth actually animated, and the spinning tunnel that you'd go through to get into the Freakshow area. and this was Flem the Fly. And the reason why we wanted to do a character like that, again, for the play mechanic, it helped because he could buzz around and, you know, they'd be hard to hit and attack you from the top of the screen and bottom of the screen.
Yeah, that's,
so
that's a tough part of the level.
Yeah, so everybody wasn't planted on the ground. And along with that idea was the Spidermonkey. So literally the Spidermonkey is a spider and a monkey. And in the game we didn't have him with a gun, I don't believe, but just that whole idea of the Spidermonkey character.
The Shriner hat on.
Was kind of fun. And why not Fez? Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
And then in the Chamber of Horrors, this is a character that didn't make it into the game, but I was just inspired by sort of torture chamber guys from the Gothic era, so that's why he's got this hood on. And
Serious looking.
Yeah, so much more serious looking enemy. He could have been a good enemy, but we didn't use him in the game. And then there were two characters called Tort and Rods, and they were sort of like torture victims in this Chamber of Horrors that were intended to be a little more scary, but beyond that, they weren't much of a threat. So you had to fight through them in order to get to the boss monster. And the boss monster of the Chamber of Horrors and the Freakshow was, it's going to be kind of hard to pick up, but Jurassic Park was big at that time, and we were really getting pushed to do something shocking, and as shocking as some of our other games. So we came up with this giant compound where there would be, you know, about 100-foot tall enemy that would come after you with diapers and giant Fisher-Price toys or kids' toys. There'd be a kid's train running around the compound. And we thought, how could we do this tongue-in-cheek, not intentionally, to be this twisted, but...
Was this before or after Honey, I Blew Up the Kids?
It was after. And
remember that?
Yeah.
The giant baby?
And we knew it would be off-putting, but we were, you know, kind of pushed to do something shocking, so we did. We also did an alternative version which turned all of him into a teddy bear and a stuffed teddy bear and made him the enemy, so that part of the game
That's
is...
an amazing picture right there.
It is, yeah.
Can
So
you get a close-up of that? Hold that up.
Yeah, so I would do things to basically inspire the
Incredible.
the 3D guys and inspire the mood. So that's why we would do things like this. And to sort of suggest, okay, there's the little train that you find yourself on, like, what am I? Oh, I'm on a train. And then you start realizing the scale is off. Like, wait a minute, I'm like a little toy, and I'm in this environment, and all of a sudden this giant boss monster comes after you.
Wow.
We had to even think about the mechanics of it. So this is the actual mechanism that would tilt up the platform. And I was thinking the whole time combining like Dr. Frankenstein with this environment. And
Like a crib with like an ejector button?
yeah. So it just so it would just have that feeling of walking into Dr. Frankenstein's lab, and all of a sudden it goes click 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 click.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that sort of feeling. This was another part of the game that didn't end up in the final, but in the very early stages of CarnEvil, we thought of having little puzzle rooms or whatever you'd enter that would kind of give you a clue of where you need to go next. And here it's the fortune teller's room, and I called her Madame Zara because the lead programmer's name was Sam Zare, so I would try and incorporate people's names. But I just thought of like going into a room and maybe she gives you clues where to go next and that sort of thing. So this didn't get used in CarnEvil, this mechanic, but it shows up here.
Can you hold that
Sure.
straighter? Because
Sure. And again, so I was constantly drawing and just trying to come up with creative concepts that might lead to something else, and you never knew what would stick and what wouldn't.
A lot going on in that picture.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can see garlic on the right
yeah,
side. Like,
yeah. So
Cat sitting up there.
yeah, so that's Madame Zera.
That could be the whole room.
These are, and again, I don't know if we want to share this stuff or not, because this is stuff you could build a game on. But these are names of rides that we would come up with, and most of them weren't used. That's why I don't know if I want to share them.
Maybe not.
But
Maybe not.
but they're really funny. So when you read through them, Lost Lunchland or Ride the Rusty Bolt, they were just very silly names.
God. What's up, Chuck?
Yeah, what's up, Chuck? I
Turn
can
off
see
the
that
combustion.
in lights. What's up, Chuck? So, yeah, like I could probably show you this, but not talk about the name. But we had alternate characters that were zombies that didn't make it into the game, and these might be sort of a nautical theme, like piratey sort of. So these were other inspirational sketches that didn't make it into the game, but just gives you a different flavor.
Ooh, some piranha.
We would have piranhas in a water theme. This character did make it into the Big Top. His name was Muertito. So in Spanish, I'm told that means little death. So Muertito was sort of a cross between a bat and a werewolf, and voiced by Martin Martinez, and he just did a great job in the game. So thankfully, Muertito made it into the Big Top.
Wow.
These are a couple random sketches. This is sort of an interesting collectible item. So again, our opening intro movie and the outro movie were rendered by a very famous company now called Blur Studios. And this was their postcard that they put out after they did our movie. So they used CarnEvil to promote themselves. The gentleman who ran Blur Studios is named Tim Miller, and he's the director of Deadpool. You may have heard of that movie, and the latest Terminator movie coming out this fall.
Blur's still around, you said?
Mm-hmm.
Blur's
still around, yeah. So that's how big this project was, and in terms of Hollywood, they loved the concept and the movies for CarnEvil. So a lot of people did see this, and this was their giveaway postcard. These are sketches, more inspirational sketches, little things. I just had in my mind of like what the silhouettes of clowns would look like on a moonlit night walking across an empty carnival, and I just thought this image was, kind of creepy, and then maybe you shine your flashlight and all of a sudden you see one even more creepy.
Yeah.
So these would
That's pretty
be
good.
inspirational scenes for our artists and 3D people to render movies. These were some inspirational things for a water ride, if we were to do a water ride where you might get in the boat, that sort of thing.
Tunnel of death.
Yeah, and then not only having enemies to shoot at, but having metal targets that would pop out, to give you a chance to shoot at other things. The original CarnEvil really was more based on that. We thought, why don't we make this an interactive carnival where you're shooting tin signs?
Like an old electromechanical.
Exactly. But the mood and the demand was a little more for let's make this game a little more graphically violent. But that was something we were hoping to do. These are some renders from the game, which if you've seen the game, you've seen these scenes, but how they look rendered. These are renderings of some of the characters as they actually appear in the game. So there's Ludwig von Tokentacher. He looks a little different than my sketch, but this is where it was really nice because everybody had their chance to put their take on things, and Scott Pikulski did a great job of giving these characters color in a different style and everything. So Scott had a lot to do with how you actually saw the games in the end. This is the character Ozab at the end of the game, so I kind of talked about him at the end, but Ozab. And maybe it's a little clearer there. And let's see, Krampus. Krampus doesn't look like the Krampus that some people know now, but again, when we were working on the game, a lot of people weren't familiar with Krampus at all. And I had family that had German background. Krampus is actually from Austria, so in the Austrian version, he's a lot more like an animal. He's guys covered with fur and very, very rough masks and long teeth and a little more of like a ghoul sort of thing. We decided to keep him a little bit more like a Santa Claus, like an anti-Santa Claus. So we wanted to sort of be able to recognize him as Santa Claus.
He's hard to kill too.
He is, yeah. And then here's Junior, the boss monster from that wave, but polarizing, I guess, would be the best word.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's controversial, I know. And then another good shot of Krampus.
That's more of the one we know.
Yeah,
From the
yeah,
game.
yeah. Where you really get a sense of the color. The
He's
reindeer
a fast
antler,
skater.
the reindeer ice skates, and then this was a sketch of selecting the 3 waves, and you'd have to play all 3 waves in order to get to the big top, which is that's pretty much how the game ended up. So you'd have to go through the rickety town, the haunted house, and the freak show in order to bring up the big top to take you to the final battle with Token Talker. These are just some other random pictures of the day we shot the poster, and here I am with the actual makeup artist, the guy who made the mask for our actor for the poster, and here I am actually working on the makeup at the photo studio, just making sure that his neck was all covered in white.
How long did you guys do that day?
That was about a full day, and we had they prepared for everything. They did an amazing job. So we gave them inspirational sketches for the poster, like it should look like this and the angle should be like this, but they had fog machines, they had headstones carved out of foam, and they had they collected leaves from I don't know where, because I can't remember if it was fall at the time, but the studio was covered with leaves and vines, and they really did an amazing job. And this is the actual character who played him, Puppet the Dwarf. He referred to himself, and that's my son in the shot. And if he wasn't scared of clowns, he was after that day. And
Sure.
and I'm in that shot. But
Speaker's no joke.
yeah, so if you want to use that shot or not, you don't have to use that shot. A friend of mine drove through Iowa and actually found the town of Greeley. So there is a Greeley, Iowa. In the game we call it Greeley Valley, just to make it sound a little more ominous. But there actually is a Greeley, Iowa, and there actually is a cemetery there. So he took pictures of the Greeley cemetery. These are, we got great press right from the start. So these are some of the actual magazines that reviewed CarnEvil, and we had very positive reviews. Here's another one with different
Wow, look at that.
hints and things like
So
that.
Tetris was on there, Castlevania.
Yeah.
Can you hold that up?
Yeah.
Safety filter. Was there any arcade secrets in there, or was that just?
There were, yeah. I think,
Yeah.
and I'll show it to you. I think that, like the party hat mode, you can do it. one secret move, and all the enemies had, all the characters had party hats on.
Hey, there's your group photo
Yeah.
and the showcase game.
Yeah. More articles. This was a really positive article.
Demented clowns, big tops, and cotton candy. It's carnival time.
One thing that we were really proud of after all this is, again, we were driven the whole time as a team to do the best we could to, you know, provide great entertainment, but still we had to earn. The game had to earn well. And in the end, after all of our hard work, CarnEvil actually outsold Mortal Kombat 4 for that year. So we were very
I'm
proud.
happy about that.
We were very proud as a team.
Yeah,
We're very proud
good.
as a team. And this was a more of an in-depth article of characters and so on and so forth.
Can you hold that up straight?
Sure. And I don't know how this works visually for you guys, but these are actual audio scripts. So when I went in and did the voice of Umlaut or Token Talker, this was the actual script that I would
great.
take in the studio.
Don't wait to bake.
Yeah. And just things that the character might say in the game. We didn't use them all, but more of that. So as far as the voice, I was the voice of Token Talker and Umlaut, so the voice range was very different. The voice of the girl character Betty in the game, there was a lot of screaming, but that was Beth Ann Smokowski, and she was amazing. She was in the creative media group at Midway, and she went on to do. She still does. She's an actress.
Oh wow.
Gets great credits for.
She's the one that runs around screaming outside.
And she does
Yeah,
more than
right.
scream now. But Beth Ann is still a performer and just a great actor.
Awesome.
Yeah. The premise of CarnEvil was it shows up in this small Iowa town in 1898, and Token Talker is kind of looking for a new bride. So he falls in love, he's attracted to one of the farmer's daughters. He comes back to get her that night. The farmer forbid his daughter from going back to CarnEvil. And when they see the daughter running off with Token Talker, that's when all the farmers of Greeley Valley attack the blimp, and it explodes above the carnival, and that's why CarnEvil gets buried in the spot. All the performers, everybody gets wiped out that night in this huge explosion, and that's why all of these characters are restless in their graves. So when you follow the folklore and you put the token back in the headstone, you bring CarnEvil back to life. So that's how the legend got started. That's why everybody's there, and that's why everybody's essentially a ghost that you're attacking.
Can you hold that picture?
Sure. So we had to do several versions of scripts for the game. So these are themes that I did that kind of go over all the details of CarnEvil, different dates, different times. But it just gives you an idea of the amount of effort and time and attention to detail, you know, all of this took over a couple years.
How long total did it take you to make
It was
CarnEvil?
about a 2-year process.
Was it?
Yeah, and it took a little longer than we wanted. We kind of changed course in the middle of how we were going to go through the park, and there were some personnel changes in the team.
Was that longer than most games were taken at Midway to make?
Yeah. I mean, the ideal was to, you know, go through it in a year and a half.